Those of you that have followed Sailing La Brisa's Facebook page already know that we did indeed splash on Tuesday, albeit for a very short while, before we had to be lifted out again to address 2 leaks. As I speak right now, La Brisa is within sight of the splash area, and Lee is working on her. We're plugging actually 2 Thru-hulls, and our other leak was a seawater or raw water intake in the stern section that we will take care of tomorrow morning. The afternoon before our splash, and at our request, Alejandro and Roberto came with the travel lift and put us in the slings. They lifted us slightly so the keel supports could be moved and we could apply bottom paint where the supports had previously been. Additionally, they placed stands to help support the boat during her night in the slings. That evening, we raised the Mexican courtesy flag up to the starboard spreader, and we were excited. The boat was as ready as she could be. And before we knew it, first thing next morning, we were trundling along, cradled by the travel lift. Blondie and I chose to ride on the boat. For me, it would be difficult to transition to the boat from the catwalk. And for Blondie, well, she, to the best of our knowledge, had never been on a boat on the water. On our ride, we watched familiar surroundings go by. At Marina Guaymas, there is the original yard and the new yard. We were in the new yard, and it is my preference. It has a good cooling breeze. It's a great place to let a dog run, and it has beautiful views. The original yard has its pluses too. It's close to the bathrooms and office, has better Wi-Fi signal, and definitely the yard to be in if you want to keep abreast of the social life of the yard. As our little parade wended its way to the travel lift slip, friends waved and came along to watch us splash. Once we hit the water, Lee and I went through the boat checking Thru-hulls. I checked the ones in the cabin, and when I checked under the lavatory in the head, I immediately saw a constant drip emanating from a Thru-hull. In the lazarette, Lee found a slight leak from the seawater intake for the galley sink. The drip from the Thru-hull in the head was from the former holding tank discharge, which was no longer in use because of the composting head. The leak itself was between the flange of the fitting and the fiberglass standoff backing from the hull. While not a flood, it was enough of a drip we would not have been comfortable going into the water with it. The leak from the seawater intake was due to a bad gasket on the strainer, and as it was non-essential, we could have simply closed the Thru-hull. I'm sorry I don't have footage of the leaks. It was quite crowded on the boat as friends came aboard to see if they could come up with a solution. The general consensus was the boat would have to come out. Omar was on hand to check out the engine, and the good news was it started on the first try and the transmission worked just fine. The yard guys put us on stands approximately 50 meters from the water, and late the same afternoon, Alejandro came by and helped Lee in the removal of the Thru-hulls. The next day started with the job of sanding and beveling the holes left behind. Then began the painstaking process of epoxying in successively smaller and smaller circles of fiberglass. For the most part, we used 1708 biaxial glass, which seemed to do very well. Lee could only add a few layers at a time due to the gravity sag issue and the endothermic reaction when the epoxy kicked. The process took several days, and it was just yesterday that Lee was ready to add the 410 fairing filler to the epoxy. Yesterday evening he sanded, and this morning he brushed on a couple of coats of plain epoxy to serve as a barrier coat. A friend says he has a little bottom paint left, and we will apply that this evening. Our tentative plans are to splash tomorrow, a week from our first attempt. Last Tuesday evening, I had envisioned Lee and I sharing a specially set-aside celebratory bottle of wine and enjoying the view from our cockpit over the water. Who knows, perhaps it will be this Tuesday evening instead. During the time we have been in this part of the yard, we have found ourselves enjoying a different view and different experience. On one side of us is the Technological Institute of Guaymas, which offers several different degrees in engineering. On the east side is a jellyfish processing operation and a commercial shipyard. Of course, to the north of us is the water, which has its own fascination and attractions. So until next time,